what will make you say that there is inflammation in that picture? Okay.
Swelling.
Redness, what else?
Swelling.
There is swelling.
Tumor.
Okay, you will ask that individual, okay, there will be a complaint of pain, and then when you touch that swollen area, there will be warmth and there will be pain,
Tenderness.
sensation. So those, the manifestations that you have mentioned are the cardinal signs of acute inflammation. So, what is the fifth?
Consolation.
Punctuation. Rubor, dolor, calor.
Tumor.
Tumor is
Swelling.
actually not only specific for cancers. Tumor means swelling. Okay? So, however, it is now it has become associated with cancers. But technically, it should refer to any form of swelling, tumor. Now,
Moving of the hair.
when you see that picture, okay, so, namali na ang sequence akong kuan anyway. After studying this chapter, you should be able to state the purpose of inflammation. Why is inflammation developing after injury? You will learn later that an injury caused by any etiologic agent or an infection, any form of infection, and then as you shall see later, even in tumors, there will always be the development of acute inflammation. Okay? So that, after the end of this chapter, you should be able to determine the purpose of the development of inflammation. Second, is for you to be able to understand and state the mechanisms that will develop in inflammation. So this is very important because when you become physicians, okay, you will be able to treat effectively inflammation if you will know what is specific component or mechanism of inflammation that you need to target in order to relieve inflammation. And then, very important also is to study and learn the morphologic abnormalities and manifestations of inflammation so that you will be able to diagnose inflammation. So whenever you see an inflamed area, must picture out this outline. Okay? So how does inflammation develop? Okay? Always remember that in all our organs, there are cells that are called sentinel cells. Okay? These sentinel cells are the macrophages, dendritic cells, and mast cells. If you will remember your histology, they also perform a specific function. Take for example the mast cells. The mast cells, they are associated with allergic reaction development. How about the macrophages? What is the main function of the macrophages?
Phagocytosis.
Okay, dendritic cells act as?
Antigen presenting.
So, they are actually present in all tissues of our organ, particularly below the epithelium. Okay, when the epithelium is breached, they will be able to detect the presence of any invading microorganism or any form of injury developing in our organ. Now, once they sense that there is tissue injury, there is cell injury, there are microorganisms present, their immediate response is to release chemicals. These chemicals are collectively called cytokines. Okay? So these chemicals are responsible for the development of all the changes that you have mentioned in the picture a while ago. So first, you must remember that there are many types of chemicals that the sentinel cells will release. One type will stimulate the blood vessels. What are the two changes that will develop in the blood vessels? Vasodilation, which will be followed by
Permeability.
increased vascular permeability. Now, you know what is the purpose for the development of vasodilatation? To increase blood flow. In order to passage of what cells? Okay, so remember, the soldiers in our body, white blood cells, are located mostly in our blood. So the immune system must be able to deliver adequate volume of blood into the inflamed area in order to increase the delivery of white blood cells. And because of the increased volume of blood that will go to the injured area, what will happen to the appearance of that area? Redness. And because blood is warmer than any tissue of the body, that's the development of calor, heat, and inflammation. Now, what is responsible for stimulating that dilatation of the blood vessels? The chemicals released by these cells. And you will learn later what are these chemicals. And then that change of vasodilatation will be followed by increased vascular permeability. What is the purpose for that change? What? Okay, you have the idea. The soldiers are inside the blood vessels. And infections and injury are outside of the blood vessels. So the white blood cells, the antibodies, and the complement proteins, as you should see later, should be allowed to exit the wall of the blood vessels. Thus the development of increased vascular permeability. That change in the blood vessel wall is again caused by the chemicals released by the cells, sentinel cells. Now the problem on it, the main purpose, as mentioned a while ago, for the development of increased vascular permeability is to allow passage of the soldiers across the wall of the blood vessel wall. And via that transmigration of white blood cells, there will be holes that will develop into the wall of the blood vessels, causing now the water of the blood to also escape. So what condition will now develop in the injured area? Edema will develop. What will now cause the swelling in acute inflammation? Increased vascular permeability that has led into the development of edema. The tumor that will develop in inflammation is secondary to the accumulation of increased volume of water in the injured area. So we will discuss. So this picture will show us that after the exit of the white blood cells from the blood vessels, they will perform another type of movement that will cause them to arrive at the site of injury. Okay? So that movement is caused by a chemical attractant. How do you call that movement? Chemotaxis. So that the white blood cells will be able to discharge their function, which we'll be studying in detail. Okay, so these are the causes of inflammation. Actually, any form of injury can trigger the development of inflammation. So infections, tissue injury caused by lack of oxygenation, heat injury, chemical injury, physical injury, stab wound, gunshot wound, they will all cause the development of inflammation. The presence of foreign bodies will also trigger tissue injury and eventually inflammation. Even endogenous substances, when they become accumulated in excessive concentration, can also cause the development of inflammation. Take for example, have you heard about gouty arthritis? Okay, the cause of that is crystallization of this uric acid in the tissues of the joints. so that the presence of the crystals will trigger the development of inflammation, thus the development of swelling and pain. Okay? So, this group, immune system disorders, we will understand this bit better when we study the diseases of the immune system. In that chapter, you will learn that our immune system, instead of protecting the body from infections, okay, the immune system becomes activated to destroy organs and cells of the body. That injury caused by the immune system can also cause the development of acute inflammation. And then in the chapter of neoplasia, you will learn that there will also be development of acute inflammation in the presence of tumors. So with that, this is a very important chapter because any form of disease, okay, there will always be development of inflammation. And you must understand the purpose for the development of that inflammation. Now, how do the sentinel cells identify the presence of tissue injury, the injured cells, and the presence of microorganisms? Remember, they are there in all organs of the body, the sentinel cells. How do they recognize the presence of cell injury or infection? They possess receptors. Okay. There are two general classes of receptors. So receptors for microorganisms, and then receptors or sensors for injured or dead cells or necrotic cells. So for the first type, microorganisms are actually identified because of the receptors that are mostly present at the surface of the white blood cells, including the sentinel cells. And then there are also receptors that are present in the cytoplasm. And because there are microorganisms which are considered intracellular pathogens. Comment text, what are these microorganisms? That will cause infection inside the cells. What? The viruses. Okay? So this is how viruses are identified inside the infected cells because the white blood cells possess receptors in the cytoplasm and even in the endosome. What is an endosome? Have you encountered that term in your study of histology and physiology?
Yeah.
What is an endosome?
Go.
Okay. This is a term used by Robbins to identify the phagosome. And the phagosome is called endosome by Robbins. Now, what is the significance of this? Remember the macrophages. What is their main function? Phagocytosis. Phagocytosis. At first, they will not select what they will phagocytose because that is their job. Now, they will be able to identify the specific antigen of the microorganism that they have phagocytosed because of the presence of receptors, which are located in their phagosome or endosome after having that microorganism engulfed or phagocytosed. And then there are also receptors that are used to identify dead cells or injured cells. Now, the sentinel cells are able to identify these injured cells of the body because once our cells become injured or once our cells die, they will release chemicals that are not normally present in the extracellular space. Take, for example, the DNA molecules. Where are they situated? In what organelle? In the nucleus. The ATP molecules are located in the mitochondria. If there are ATP molecules, if there are DNA materials in the extracellular space, then it is indicative that there are cells which are already damaged, which are already dead. And because the sentinel cells possess receptors for these chemicals, they are able to identify dead cells or damaged cells and trigger the development of acute inflammation. Microorganisms are also identified by the sentinel cells, particularly the macrophages, because they possess receptors for the Fc portion of what protein? Antibodies. So after the antibodies have bound themselves to the microorganisms, they are easily identified by the macrophages, these microorganisms, because they have receptors for the Fc portion of the antibodies. Now, how do you call that process? Whereby phagocytosis is enhanced. Opsonization. How about in the complement system? Remember, that system is composed of many proteins. What complement component will produce the effect of opsonization?
C3b.
C3b. Very good. Because the phagocytic cells and the sentinel cells possess receptors for C3b. Okay, that picture will show us how vasodilation develops. Okay? How vasodilation develops. Remember the sentinel cells. When they identify microorganisms or the presence of dead cells or injured cells, remember that they will release many types of chemicals. One of them is histamine. Histamine will stimulate the smooth muscle fibers in the wall of the blood vessels, particularly the post-capillary venules, to relax. Okay? Causing the blood vessels to become dilated. In order to increase, or even the arteries will become dilated, in order to increase the flow of blood into the injured area. That's the development of redness and calor or heat. And then, the problem with histamine is that it exerts transient effect only. Okay? The effect of histamine will last for few minutes only. That is why it needs to be followed by other classes of chemicals, which are still produced by the sentinel cells. Okay? Once they detect injury or infection, they will become very busy, releasing many types of chemicals. So from releasing histamine, they will release the chemicals that are called prostaglandins and leukotrienes. Okay? We will discuss these chemicals in our next meeting. But the mentioned chemicals will provide the sustained effect in stimulating the blood vessels to become dilated. Okay, this picture will show us the mechanism behind the development of increased vascular permeability. Again, histamine will initiate that change, particularly in the post-capillary venules. So the dilated blood vessels will become stimulated again by histamine through their endothelial cells. Once the endothelial cells become stimulated by histamine, they will contract, causing them to retract from their attachment to each other. Now, because of that retraction, spaces are formed. Thus, the development of increased vascular permeability. Now, the type of edema that will develop in inflammation is classified as an exudative type of edema, because that edema contains white blood cells and proteins. What are these proteins? Okay, they are mostly the antibodies and the complement proteins. They are needed in the combat of infection. So the picture above shows us how the blood and the blood vessels prevent the development of edema. So there are two opposing forces, as what you have learned in your physiology. What will keep water of the blood inside the blood vessels? What pressure is that? Which is exerted by what protein? Albumin. And then, what is the opposing That will be exerted by the volume of blood and the pressure of blood. Hydrostatic pressure. And then below will show us how this form of edema develops, the transudative type of edema. So where there is no increased vascular permeability, but there is imbalance between the osmotic pressure or the hydrostatic pressure. If the hydrostatic pressure becomes increased, edema will develop. Take for example, pulmonary edema. Where does that condition develop? From right-sided or left-sided heart failure?
Left. Left.
Left-sided heart failure. Okay? So when the left ventricle fails to pump all the blood in its chamber into the aorta, what happens next? Backflow. Very good. From the left ventricle, some volume of blood will go back to the lungs, passing through first left ventricle, left atrium, and then from the left atrium to pulmonary vein or pulmonary artery? Pulmonary veins. And then backflow of blood will go to the capillaries in the lungs. What pressure will become increased in the capillaries of the lungs? Thus the escape of water from the capillaries of the lungs, leading into the development of pulmonary edema. Now, decreased plasma osmotic pressure most of the time is secondary from decreased albumin concentration. What organ produces albumin? Liver. So that if there is a disease of the liver, automatically, or not automatically, in many diseases of the liver, there will be decreased production of albumin. So decreasing the osmotic pressure of the blood, or even in kidney diseases, where there will be loss of proteins, including albumin in the blood, from the blood. So decreasing the osmotic pressure of the blood, causing the development of a generalized type of edema. All portions of the body will become swollen. Do you know the term used to describe that condition? Generalized edema. All portions of the body will develop edema.
Lymphadenopathy.
Term starts with letter A.
Aside.
Anasarca. Anasarca.
I don't know, wala look at
And we have discussed this picture aptly. So what chemical causes the initial increased vascular permeability? Histamine. And then that chemical will be followed by prostaglandins and leukotrienes. Okay? There are also other forms of injury which by themselves can cause increased vascular permeability. Take for example, thermal injury. Okay? Where the blood vessels will become burned by the hot, very hot temperature. So that injuries in the wall of the blood vessels will cause the escape of water from the blood, including many proteins. Okay, what are the roles or what are the responses of the lymphatic vessels and the lymphatic system during inflammation? So expectedly, what will happen to the function of the lymphatic capillaries? Increase, because what is their function? Okay, drain excess water in all organs of the body. So that when an organ becomes inflamed because of edema, the lymphatic capillaries will become more busy. Okay? When the inflammation extends into the lymphatic vessels, the condition becomes called lymphangitis. And then when the regional lymph nodes become involved with the inflammation, it will be called by this name, lymphadenitis. So that at this point, whenever you see the suffix itis following the name of an organ or a tissue, it means that that organ or tissue is having an inflammation. Okay, so we have discussed the development and the purpose of the changes that will occur in the blood vessels. Vasodilatation and increased vascular permeability. Now,
Lahat.
under the microscope, those two changes will produce characteristic appearance of the blood vessels as congested blood vessels, where they are dilated, and they are filled with red blood cells and white blood cells. Normally, the blood vessels will only allow laminar flow of the cells of the blood. What is laminar flow? Okay, what is laminar flow? You have finished physiology already. What? In laminar flow, where are the cells, particularly the red blood cells, located?
The center.
At the center of the lumen of the blood vessel. And then, the red blood cells are at the center. The white blood cells are at the periphery of the red blood cells. What is the purpose for laminar flow? Why must the cells of the blood be at the center and not at the periphery of the lumen of the blood vessels? Because with the flow of blood, the sheer flow of blood can cause friction of the cells of the blood into the endothelial cells, which can cause injury to the endothelial cells. When the endothelial cells become injured, what will be the immediate response of the blood? To form clots, which may obstruct and impede blood flow. Thus, there should be laminar flow to prevent the development of clots. Now, in acute inflammation, the blood vessels will become dilated. And then because of increased vascular permeability, okay, the volume of water in the blood becomes decreased, causing now the cells of the blood to accumulate in greater number in the dilated vessel and causing them now to reach the periphery of the lumen. So that is why the white blood cells become pushed near the endothelium. So that movement is called margination. Oh, they have a picture. Margination. Now, remember the sentinel cells? Aside from stimulating the blood vessels, they will release other types of chemicals. That will include tumor necrosis factor and interleukin 1. Now, what are the effects of these two chemical mediators or cytokines? They will stimulate the white blood cells and the endothelial cells to express these proteins, which are collectively called selectins. Okay? Aside from stimulating the endothelial cells and the white blood cells to express selectins. Okay? So by the way, the selectins that are expressed by the white blood cells are called L-selectins, leukocytes, selectins. And then the selectins that are expressed by the endothelial cells, E-selectin or P-selectin. And then, aside from stimulating the expression of selectins, TNF and interleukin 1 will also stimulate them to express the ligands. What do you mean by ligand? Okay, that will bind to these receptors. So, these ligands are expressed by the white blood cells, and the ligands are also expressed by the endothelial cells. Collectively, the ligands are called by this name. Sialyl-Lewis X modified glycoprotein. Okay? They will bind to the selectins, allowing now the white blood cells to come into contact with the wall of the blood vessels, particularly the endothelial cells. But the selectins provide low affinity binding capability only. So that after a few seconds, the white blood cells will become detached from the endothelial cells. So they will become attached, detached, producing the characteristic movement which is called rolling. And then with further exposure to TNF and interleukin-1, these cells, both the leukocytes and the endothelial cells, will become stimulated to express another type of receptor. This time, the integrins. And their ligands, which are collectively called ICAMs. Okay? So, the integrins, from the name itself, the name of these receptors itself, will provide a higher affinity binding for the white blood cells to the endothelial cells. That is why they will now become attached to the wall of the blood vessels. They will not roll anymore. So producing the movement, this is called adhesion. With further, again, stimulation by TNF and interleukin-1, there will be expression of these receptors, PCAM1 and CD31. So this receptor can act as both ligand and receptor, because PCAM1 is expressed by both the endothelial cells and the white blood cells, particularly the neutrophils. Okay? So that binding will now cause further retraction of the endothelial cells from each other, allowing now the neutrophils to squeeze through the spaces between the endothelial cells. And then, the next hindrance will be the basement membrane. Okay? So that, after PCAM1 to PCAM1 binding, the neutrophils become activated also to release the enzyme collagenases that will lyse and digest the basement membrane, so that they can now migrate across the full thickness of the blood vessel wall. How do you call that movement?
Diapedesis.
Diapedesis. Or transmigration. This is a very toxic looking table. Okay, do not worry. And this first column, okay, listed are the selectins. Next column will show you the cells that will express the selectins. And take for example, E-selectin is expressed by the endothelial cells. And then the last column will show you their corresponding receptors, which are collectively called the sialyl-Lewis X glycoproteins. And then in the next row are the integrins, and the cells that are expressing these integrins. And then on the last row are the ligands of the integrins, which are collectively called the ICAMs, ICAM or BCAM, the ICAMs or the BCAMs. And then in the last row is CD31. What is the other name for CD31? PCAM. And then look at the ligand of PCAM. CD31, PCAM. So that the PCAM can act as both receptor and ligand, okay? Which is expressed by both the endothelial cells and the white blood cells, particularly the neutrophils. Okay, next movement, we have discussed this slide actually. And this slide also, we have discussed this slide, the upper portion. Remember these two cytokines, TNF and interleukin-1, what are their sources? the sentinel cells. Okay? So, next movement that must be performed by the white blood cells, because they are still away from the site of infection or injury, they must be able to move in order to reach the site of injury and infection, so that they will be able to discharge their function. Okay? So that type of movement is called chemotaxis, which we have defined as movement stimulated by chemical mediators. Now there are two groups of chemicals that can attract the white blood cells, particularly the neutrophils and the macrophages. So, first group are the exogenous chemotaxis. So, primarily mentioned in Robbins is this amino acid, N-formyl methionine. You have studied biochemistry already. Did you encounter that amino acid? Did you encounter N-formyl methionine in your biochemistry? Yes or no? You did not study that amino acid because it is not present in the human body. That amino acid is present in the cell wall of the microorganisms or the bacteria only. So that our white blood cells are not attracted to our cells. They will not attack our cells because they know the chemical composition of our cells. Okay? So anything foreign will attract the white blood cells. So endogenous sources will mostly come from the sentinel cells themselves also. Sentinel cells and the injured cells. Sentinel cells and the injured cells. The injured cells may release interleukin-1 or this leukotriene B4, which can exert chemotactic effect. And then once the complement system becomes activated, it will also release this chemotaxin, C5A. That picture will show us how the neutrophils and the macrophages move via chemotaxis. Okay? So the chemotactic agents are at this leading portion of the white blood cells. So the chemotaxins also have receptors to the white blood cells. Once these receptors are bound by the chemotaxins, that binding will trigger the activation of secondary messengers in the cytoplasm. So eventually reaching the nucleus. And then once the nucleus becomes activated, or specific DNA segments in the nucleus become activated, okay, that activation of the nucleus will tell the actin filaments to become polymerized to the leading portion, to the site where there is chemotaxin stimulation. So the polymerized actin will form these projections, which are called the small pit, the filopodia. Okay, the filopodia. And then the myosin filaments will become polymerized also at the posterior end of the body of the white blood cell. So posterior end, myosin filaments, leading end, the actin filaments. So that when these two filaments contract, okay, so the contraction will cause the pulling of the posterior end of the body towards the filopodia. So that is how movement of the white blood cell is achieved by a chemotaxis. Okay, so this picture or this slide will show us why the neutrophils are the first ones to be delivered in acute inflammation. First reason is that they are the most numerous type of white blood cell in the blood. Second, they possess the greatest number of receptors for interleukin-1 and tumor necrosis factor. They are very fast in expressing integrins and selectins and integrins. Unfortunately, excuse me for a while.
Ito namin sa iwas.
Now, unfortunately, once the neutrophils are outside of the blood, okay, they will have very short lifespan. They will usually die after 24 to 48 hours from apoptosis, okay, which you have already studied. And they will die naturally. That is why, after 48 hours, they will become replaced by a more efficient white blood cells, more efficient phagocytic cells, the macrophages. What is the origin of the macrophages in the blood? Monocytes. So they are better phagocytic cells because they are larger than neutrophils. They have longer lifespan. They can survive many months outside of the blood. Actually, there are macrophages which are considered residents in our organs. In fact, they are provided with specific names.